Hello, let's talk about something very important to us today. Depression, sadness. We all experience it, some more than most. But do you really want to give your baby some antidepressants? That's sure love. I mean, if you're giving your baby formula by these fucked up brands, corn syrup, artificial dyes, and all these things that are horrible for their mind, for the whole body and spirit, then you might as well give them some drugs too, right? You might as well blow some marijuana in their face. That's healthier than the shit that they're prescribing. Or let them snort some cocaine, or maybe when their teeth hurt and they have teeth aches, maybe you can dip their little binky in some cocaine and put it in their mouth. 274,000 babies aged 1 and younger were given some sort of antipsychotic medication. They're given psychiatric drugs. I think it's time to address a serious problem in the mental health community. Because as we know, anxiety and depression has risen very high during the COVID times. Now, there's a stigma of a chemical imbalance in the brain. Now, yes, our body is made of chemicals and how we react to them, but there's something prior to that. There is something before that, which is called thought. Thought, identification to thought, and then reaction to thought. The body reacts, the adrenals ignite, all ensues. Chemical imbalances. Chemical imbalances. Sad, angry, we're made of chemicals. You know, this happens when we emote. The body gives off different reactions. So think about the space between the thought and the identification with thought. Think about that. Think about the breath. Think about what breathing does in your nose, breathing all that air. Think about what that does to your body and how it makes it feel. Not what your story is telling you about this. Listen to the truth of the breath and what it does for you. If we can disassociate from thoughts, if we cannot identify so heavily with our thoughts and our conditioning, do you think our body would react so extremely? Do you think the chemicals in our brain would be firing so rapidly if we can disassociate with ourselves from these thoughts that are not us, whether they be good, bad, or this and that? And this doesn't mean to be some robot. This is simply to be the observer of the stream of thoughts. And yes, this may take practice because conditioning is heavy. We condition ourselves to believe our stories, our insecurities, and all of these things that make up our identity. But it's very much possible, and it's very much the most logical way through awareness of this conditioning, through awareness of the thoughts, that and diet and lifestyle. So we have awareness, and then we have diet and lifestyle changes. The two go hand in hand with one another. They're essential. But the core of the teaching comes from the observation of thoughts. Obviously, there's something seriously wrong here. If there's almost 300,000 children in 2013 on some sort of psychiatric drug, that is frightening. And these people are going to grow into society, most of them. And do you really think it's going to get any better? So it's time to start using different tools of innate sense of being, tools that we have within ourselves, tools that the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors cannot make money upon, tools that have been around since the beginning of time, since spirituality was first birthed. All of these observations of the ego and chatter. No one is different. We all have the same bullshit. We all have the same story. We all have the same thing. We all have the same collective makeup of unconsciousness embedded in our primitive realities. We all have the same shit. But we are all incredibly unique despite sharing the same experiences. Like snowflakes, we all fall to the same white blanket. We're all one. But we must develop ourselves. And we must be kind to ourselves. And putting your faith in these fucking pharmaceutical companies, these greed-riddled cocksuckers, not the best idea. You want to listen to the media? You want to listen to these news outlets that are sponsored and paid for by people like Pfizer and making billions and billions of dollars in advertising to pay their employees' salaries and to keep going? Obviously, they're going to perpetuate fairy tale bullshit. They're going to perpetuate all these toxic things in order to keep their salary flowing. I mean, if you don't believe me, just listen to the list of side effects that they say after they say, oh, well, you want to be happy, you want to live a happy life? Well, you can take this pill, but you might have random bouts of thinking about killing yourself or killing your family or going to shoot up a movie theater or this and that. And possible side effects include diarrhea. If you're trying to take a poo and your butt closes up, please contact a doctor or an emergency professional immediately. There is a serious problem in society today, and it must be addressed from a logical and spiritual sense of being that connects us to our true source of energy and inspiration. That is nature, that is the universe. People may call it God. All is one and the same. Everything is one and the same. We have to separate ourselves from our mind stream, from our thoughts. We must practice at this. We must realize that we are not our thoughts. We must realize that everyone has fucked up thoughts and there's no shame in that. We must realize that there's nothing wrong with you. And you have to generate the awareness to be you beyond you. You have to accept that you're not going to be happy all the time. You're not going to be sad all the time. You're not going to be mad or angry all the time. There's this innate peace in just being. And yes, it's not an escape from feeling all of these emotions. Sometimes thoughts will be racing, you feel like you're going crazy. But the moral of the story is emotions are like seasons. The mind works like seasons, come and go. It rains, the clouds part, the sun comes out. The society that we live in looks to make money on anything. They look to capitalize anything and generate an income. That's the capitalist culture we live in. That's the corporate America that we live in. That's the corporate world that we live in. In order to see through this, we need to develop ourselves. We need to develop a rational way to see things and to observe things without being so impulsive. We can do this by breathing. In out the nose. The mind may chatter, the mind may say shit, but it's not you. It's not you. It's a part of you, but it's not you. It's okay. Just accept it. And remember, you don't release a thought. A thought releases you when you're ready. The more you ingrain your story into your mind, the more you tell yourself that you're this forever victim, the more you label yourself as an addict, the more shame you have, the more self-loathing and guilt. I despise the word addiction and addict because it's been coined into a term that locks you into being a forever prisoner. It perpetuates misery and sorrow, even reflecting on your sober days, rather than just being. Not to take away from anyone's accomplishments of sobriety or anything like that. This is beyond that. This is beyond labelization. But this does play very heavily into word choice because the words we say, despite words having no absolute meaning other than our actions, words play a very, very powerful role in our subconscious. So when you say something like, "Oh, I'm an addict," what does that do? I'm a former addict. No, better choice of words. I've developed poor habits. In the past, I've had bad habits, but now I've reinforced them with positive habits. Positive habits, addiction. Positive habits, addict. What sounds better to you? What feels better? You don't need extremities in order to make yourself fearful to fucking up again. It's the guilt and the shame, and it's the thought. It's the identification of thought that corrupt the spirit. Once you label yourself, you limit yourself. There is a space between the thought and the reaction. There's a space between the thought and the chemical reaction. That's the simplest way to put it. And we have the ability to see this space, to feel this space, and to react accordingly. Sometimes it will be more difficult than other times, but it is beyond possible. It's beyond attainable. And it is here and lives within us. And you don't have to be prescribed it. It doesn't cost anything. It's freedom. It's self-love that exudes to all.